Good evening. You're watching Beyond the Headline with me, Tamanna and Inamdar. The Chinese dragon is angry and is spitting fire. We knew there would be a reaction after Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. A humiliated and embarrassed China would have to do something to show that they are reacting. They were expected to act out. But would that something be just symbolic, enough of a political fig leaf for Xi Jinping? Or will they use the Pelosi visit as an excuse to fulfill a long-term fantasy of taking over Taiwan or reuniting the one China, as they call it? These visuals that emerged today have got the world worried. A desperate China is beginning to go ballistic, literally. Earlier today, the Chinese conducted 11 ballistic missile strikes over the Taiwan Strait. Taiwan, on its end, claims Chinese planes and warships have crossed the median line. The Chinese Army's Eastern Command has even identified 6 zones. Let's go in here a little closer. They've identified 6 zones where military exercises are being carried out. A look at this map makes it clear what the purpose is. The idea is to threaten and scare Taiwan by pretty much surrounding them. So these are the 6 zones that have been identified by the Chinese as where they are capable of military action. This is clearly a threat. Now, what's escalated tensions even further is the firing of 5 Dongfeng ballistic missiles by China into what Japan claims is its exclusive economic zone, which extends 200 nautical miles off Japan's coast. Their defense minister, Nobuo Kishi, said, and I quote, "This is a serious problem that affects our national security and the safety of the Japanese people." They have said it undermines safety, so Japan is worried. So let's quickly recap what China has done so far. On the 2nd of August, as soon as Pelosi touched down in Taipei, live fire drills and missile launches were announced between the 4th and the 7th of August. 6 exclusion zones were then established. Chinese jets have since then crossed the median line. Sanctions have been imposed against Taiwan, but we have to clarify here. The sanctions are on not the major imports, some fruit, kinds of fish. They've blocked sand from coming in from Taiwan. But the big import, of course, is semiconductors. They haven't touched that yet, and that's important. Chinese firms have been banned from Taiwan deals, and China has summoned the U.S. ambassador. By today, 11 more ballistic missiles have been fired into the Taiwan Strait. 22 Chinese planes have flown over the median line, and Navy ships have crossed the median line. The question is, what could they do next? Now, the fear, of course, is that there could be an invasion of Taiwan. And that will be the big one. Will we see another Ukraine kind of situation? The Chinese may also recall its ambassador to the U.S. It could block the Taiwan Strait and could seize Taiwan-controlled islands. The biggest of these fears for the global economy and for the rest of the world is what happens in the Taiwan Strait. And this is very crucial because the Taiwan Strait is one of the busiest sea routes in the world. It separates Taiwan and China and is just about 130 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. It is the primary route for ships from East Asia to the West. The most precious commodity coming from here right now is possibly semiconductors. Now remember, the post-COVID chip shortage, when electronic items, laptops, cars were all becoming scarce, well, it's because Taiwan accounts for 60% of the world's production of semiconductors. It all comes through that Taiwan Strait. This area is also a key artery for natural gas transport, and it's quite apparent that if China continues to escalate, it will be a big, big problem. So what happens next? Are we going to see another Ukraine? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Yasuhide Nakayama, ex-MOS Defense of Japan. Sana Hashmi, Postdoctoral Fellow, is also joining us on the show. I'm also speaking with Ambassador Suresh Kumar Goel, former ambassador, and Captain Alok Bansal. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us. Ambassador Goel, let me just begin with your assessment of what we have seen in the last 24 hours.
Tamanna, thank you very much. Good evening. Good to be once again with you on the show. 2 or 3 things here. First of all, it's my assessment that Even yesterday, we knew that in response or in retaliation to the visit by Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, China would respond. China would respond with action in the region, and that action would basically give warning shots to Taiwan, to Japan, and to South Korea that even if you have USA as an ally with security architecture, with the security dynamics with you, please remember that we are the power in the region and you cannot escape us. Therefore, what we see today, the missiles across Taiwan into the Taiwan Straits, Tumfeng into Japan, are basically demonstration of Chinese power to these countries that you cannot be very, very far away from us. However, I don't think that in the real world that the existing China can afford a war at this stage. And any action which could actually cause damage to either Taiwan or to Japan would be a warning to the USA, would be actually an invitation to the USA to come and engage with China. And I don't think China would do that at the moment, really, unless in their calculation, and if USA actually, to use a loose word again, USA actually chickens out and say that, all right, we will leave it here. But I don't think USA can do that because that will challenge USA position in the entire Indo-Pacific. Therefore, I do not expect any war to take place. I do not expect China to go beyond these kind of threatening noises and the actions.
Yes.
They will not fire missiles into Taiwan. They will fire missiles across Taiwan into the Taiwan Straits, but not beyond that. They will fire missiles into Japanese special economic zones, but nothing which will cause huge damage to Japan. These are all warning shots.
So a little huffing and puffing, but nothing more than that. Is that what you expect as well, Mr. Nakayama? I'm so glad to have you on the show. Is that what you expect as well? All right, I'll come to him in just a bit. But, you know, interesting point made by Ambassador Goel that they are not going to go beyond this. Sana Hashmi is joining us now. She's a postdoctoral fellow at TAEF, that's the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation. Sana, great to have you on the show. Can you just give us context of why we have seen such an escalation of action? After all, it was a visit by Nancy Pelosi. The US has said that she's not representing the government. She's doing her own thing. Do you think this is an overreaction from China?
Thank you for having me on the show. No, definitely it's an overreaction, and they had to follow through the thread that they have been doing on the social media, even by the officials. So they had to do something, and they don't want to escalate with the US. It's actually very much visible because they started doing the exercise only after Pelosi left Taiwan. So I think this is something that we have to keep in mind, that they don't want escalation to the level that it goes out of control. But I feel that they had to do something. And what they are doing right now is intimidating Taiwan militarily. And today, what we saw is, I don't think it's really going to have, it's really going to impact China's relationship with the US. It's really going to impact cross-strait relationship, which we have seen that it's really not normal since 2016. So I believe that is just intimidation, but everything is normal in Taiwan. They are really trying to intimidate the people of Taiwan. They're trying to create this sense of anxiety and panic among people. And
I saw news reports that the people of Taiwan are being prepared for possible war, etc. Is that all really happening? Because a lot of what you see out there might be exaggerated. What exactly is the mood there?
No, I think for a very, very long time, what government has been doing is to prepare the people for combat. And also, in case of an eventuality, people should be ready. There are locations for bunkers, but this has been happening for the past several decades. So it's not something that is happening in the recent past. So I think this is something that's very important to emphasize. And if you look at people around right now, it's all normal. I think it's very much on the internet that people are getting to know about what's actually happening in the Taiwan Strait right now. If someone is not on the internet, if someone is not watching the news, they won't even get to know what's actually happening right now. So I think the environment is totally normal in Taiwan as of now, but let's see what happens in the next 4 days. But I agree with Ambassador Goel that it's not going to, China is not really going to escalate to the level that it goes out of control. So we are not really going to see a direct military confrontation because it's also going to involve the US. And now we also saw Japan. Japan has already stated that also impacts the security. So I think the stakes China is very, very high right now.
Captain Alok Bansal, now that there is an involvement, quote unquote, of Japan with these 5 ballistic missiles which have been fired into their exclusive economic zone, does that change things, or is this something that Japan will also take on the chin? That, you know, China is angry, let them vent, and it ends there. How do you see this developing? Because I just want to take a second to draw an example of what was happening earlier this year with Russia and Ukraine. A lot of people, and you know, we did a series of shows like this at that time. A lot of people said it's not going to go any further. Putin is just going to, you know, huff and puff a little and end it there. He won't dare to do anything because US will come to their rescue. I'm not saying that will happen. But,
see, what I'm,
you know, history tends to repeat itself.
Yeah, you need to understand that when you are playing a game of brinkmanship, very often the actions result in unintended results. Now, China is firing missiles. There are ships flying there. It's actually into the open oceans. Now, supposing a ship gets hit, what happens? There are Kinmen and Matsu Island, which are just across Chinese coast, which are just 10 nautical miles from Chinese coast. They are 100 nautical miles from Taiwan. What happens to them? How are they supplied? If China stops that supply, what happens? See, as I said, I have no doubts that what China is indulging in or what China is doing at this moment is primarily because their bluff has been called up. So they have to do something. Xi Jinping has to show to his domestic audience that he is capable, because they raised the level to such a high level that once Nancy Pelosi landed there, the bluff was called out and they had no other option. So they are indulging in. Now, supposing tomorrow a Japanese merchant ship is hit in Japanese EEZ, what it would result in? We have to think in those terms. Very often when you escalate the level, you find it very difficult to de-escalate. So is it going to happen? Because till now, it's a unilateral action. China has been escalating. The manner in which they are exercising around Taiwan, it is no way of exercising actually. It is a grave, grave provocation. If you are carrying out naval exercises all around the island, that you show that you are actually surrounding it. Now, what happens to the merchant ships which are flying through this? A naval battle is not like a battle on land, where you have only two belligerents. In a maritime arena, you have so many neutrals, you have so many merchant ships, there are so many things. Now, even if China does not want to aggravate, the feasibility that it could get aggravated is always exist. And that fact must be understood. And the Taiwan's peculiar location and the history indicates. As far as Taiwan is concerned, there is no doubt that from Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek's time, they have been preparing for this war with China. But the fact is that the qualitative edge which the Taiwan's military enjoyed over China in the earlier decades has actually been completely eroded to a very great extent because of Taiwan's huge investments into mainland. In fact, the huge imbalance that
existed. But that works both ways, doesn't it? That works both ways. China also doesn't want to cut off all of its supplies from Taiwan. I talked about semiconductors a little while earlier. Those are checks and balances. I want to come to Ambassador Goel on one more point. The question always is of escalation, and that's what happened with Russia and Ukraine as well. How much of the world will get involved? In that case, we saw a lot of best wishes from the West, a lot of funding, absolutely, weaponry, but no boots on the ground. They were left to fend for themselves. In this case, can even that much happen? Because only 13 nations in the world recognize Taiwan's claim of independence. To the rest of the world, they're a part of China. China will turn around and say that we're doing whatever we're doing in our territory.
Tamanna, if things escalate in the region, it won't be an issue of who recognizes China and who recognizes Taiwan. It will be an issue of security architecture in the region and who feels threatened to what extent and what they will do to basically ensure their own security. Now, in this particular case, given the nature of Indo-Pacific area, Taiwan, South Korea will feel threatened immediately by the actions of China. And they may feel compelled to actually contribute to the war. In case there is a war, there is a military action. So it won't be boots on the ground, but there will be lots of missiles, there will be lots and lots of both in the region. But again, I'm saying that this will not happen. I'm saying will because I'm quite certain for two reasons. Number one, Xi Jinping will not take any chances of escalating the action in the year when he's seeking re-election. Because if he loses that action, his chances are completely gone. Therefore, his interest lies in showing that he can be tough, but not to the extent that he loses the action. That's the biggest factor here. Number two, any action on the seas there in the region,
Right.
a direct invitation to the USA, and that will not be. So I'm quite certain, even though I completely agree with Captain Alok Bansal, that there are always chances of accident.
Yes.
And therefore, Xi Jinping did overreach himself by firing those missiles in the region.
But does he look at it that way? Do the Japanese look at it that way? I'm joined now by Mr. Yasuhide Nakayama. He is the ex-Minister of State for Defense in Japan. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking with us on Mirror Now and on Beyond the Headline. I just want to start with your first response to the action of today and what China has done by firing 5 ballistic missiles into your exclusive economic zone. How do you look at this?
Yes, this must be all the democracies must not give in to China's threat. The world should not remain silent on China's actions. The world must reconsider the one China policy. Taiwan is a democratic country, and also this kind of activities actually they are escalating the situation because Nancy Pelosi's visit is just a visit. And how come the China doing the reaction using like ballistic missiles? So this kind of activity is not, forgive for them.
Mr. Nakayama, give us some context because China is known for its aggression in the area. And of course,
yes.
Your nation has dealt with it for decades. Is the action that we're seeing in the last 24 hours unusual, or has it been seen before? On a scale of 1 to 10, how alarming is it?
Yes, this is actually, it is really high tension, and this is rare. And this is my feeling as personal. I think it's a level 5 during the 10 levels. So they are actually escalating, and they are aggression, and they are using expansionism always. But compared to the next decade, I think this is still level 5. But accidentally, war or conflict always possibility to happen in near future.
We've been speaking on this panel. Sorry. Pardon me. We've been speaking on this panel, and the consensus seems to be that it ends here, that Xi Jinping has got the opportunity to show that he's miffed, he's shown some action, and it ends here. He won't go further. Do you have that same view? How do you assess the situation?
No, I don't think so. You know, the situation today is different from what would leader decide 50 years ago. Moreover, after Hong Kong's handover, China broke the international treaty of one country, two systems. I think the United States remains concerned about peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. It says it opposes China's unilateral attempts to change the status quo. At the same time, the United States has said that its policy on Taiwan remains uncharged, and that it does not want China to escalate. I think it means to maintain a one China policy. And the U.S. Indo-Pacific Commander Philip Davidson told a Senate Armed Service Committee hearing last year that China would invade Taiwan within the next 6 years. He testified that it was possible. Commander Davidson said, I am concerned that China are increasing their ambition to replace the United States. Our country's role as leader in the rule-based international order by 2015, he said. Before that, Taiwan is definitely
Right.
one of the goals of ambition. I believe that the policy of ambiguity that has been implemented in the relationship between Taiwan and China has reached its limit. And the invasion of the South China Sea and the East China Sea has already begun. Non-peaceful uses of outer space, the space, have also begun. China has more military satellites compared than the United States. I predict that the time will come when Japan will have to raise the level of its defense. Over the next
Do you
5 years,
think the world will come to your aid at that time? Do you think your Quad partners will come to your aid? And I hark back to what happened in Ukraine early this year. There were a lot of words being spoken, but at the end of the day, the Ukrainians had to fight their own battle and continue to do so.
Exactly, you are right. I think in the event of an emergency in Taiwan, no matter what form it takes, it is certain that Japan will become a party to it and will never be able to remain a bystander. In light of these points, what is important for us is not to predict whether or not the Taiwan crisis or the US-China war will occur, as if by fortune telling, but to keep these crises as far away as possible.
Absolutely.
Do we have to do it? Yeah, and reconsider the challenges we face. China should fulfill its responsibilities as a great power, and America, United States of America, should fulfill its responsibilities as the leader of a democratic nations.
Well, we hope better sense prevails. I want to thank you, Mr. Nakayama, for joining us. I know it's past 1:30 in the morning, your time, and you stayed awake to speak with us. I want to really thank you for that. But I want to continue the discussion over here based on what the former minister from Japan said and some very important points that he made. He is saying that the invasion has begun, in his view. It's a matter of time that China will move to fulfill its dream of one China, and if there is any kind of an attack on Taiwan, Japan will get involved. Sana Hashmi, how do you see this moving forward? Do you think that this is pretty much the end of the story? And what are the signs we need to look out for?
No, there's a lot of discussion about whether to call it an invasion or not, but I don't think we have reached that level as of yet. We have to wait, we have to watch how it is going to pan out in the next 4 or 5 days, but I don't think we'll reach that level, hopefully. But I think there's a lot of context. How do we see this conflict panning on? How do we see China? Why is China doing that? So this is actually not a provocation at all. Pelosi's visit was not a provocation. China has been frustrated with how Taiwan has been getting a lot of attention at the international stage. So I think it's just a show of military might right now that tomorrow, if the exchanges increases, this is what we are going to do. And we are doing the blockade of Taiwan. If tomorrow something more happens, if, for example, if strategic ambiguity is not in place, or tomorrow Taiwan officially declares that, we are an independent nation. So I think these are the provocations. Pelosi's and whatever is happening is not a provocation.
I want to take that point to Ambassador Goel. Pelosi coming is not a provocation. Then why are we seeing all of this action post that? It should have just passed away with, maybe a statement from the Chinese government, from their foreign office condemning it, etc., etc. But it has escalated, hasn't it?
I think here, what Sana said, there is a lot of merit in that. It's not even about Taiwan per se. It's actually about China versus the USA in Indo-Pacific. China is making it very clear to the USA that, look, you cannot just go ahead and assert yourself, harming, or at least at the expense of Chinese interest, Chinese influence in the region. And what the USA is conveying to China is that you can only come this far, but ultimately you cannot become the power in Indo-Pacific. And Taiwan became, or Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan became the spark which ignited the tinderbox. Eventually, however, I think militarily, one day there would be actually a contest, a military contest between China and the USA, but the time is not now. I think we need to wait for that time to happen.
I hope it never comes. I hope
Yes.
it never comes, because we are such a connected world. It impacts everyone. Captain Alok Bansal, I just want some context on the US's role. We've obviously talked about China, thin-skinned, as always, when it comes to Taiwan or any perceived or imagined threat to its territory, etc. But what was the United States doing? Should Pelosi have gone there? It's well known that it's a raw nerve. What's the plan there?
See, as far as White House is concerned, it's already given a statement that it would have not preferred if she didn't go there. So that is.
I mean, could she have gone if they didn't want her to? Let's talk about what we're reading between the lines.
No, well, I'm not in a position to comment whether she could have gone or not. But considering the way U.S. Constitution and U.S. government functions, a Speaker of the House of Representatives, if she wanted to go there, she could go there. I think U.S. President.
No, I mean from the point of view, sir, that the U.S. military escorted her there.
No, obviously, U.S. military is duty bound to escort her. She is a high dignitary, and if she is going somewhere, she has to be escorted. And if they visualize certain threat to her, they are duty bound to escort her. But having said that, we need to understand that U.S. has seen a lot of loss of face. The manner in which they withdrew from Kabul and the manner in which they left Ukrainians to fight alone, they would want to redeem their honor, because US had emerged as an unreliable ally as far as the global community was concerned. And I think by eliminating Ayman al-Zawahiri and now taking Nancy Pelosi to Taipei, they have shown that they are willing to stand by their allies. So if the push comes to shove, I think the US would stand by the Taiwanese government. And in fact, if the Chinese actually go beyond a certain limit. But there is a problem we need to understand, that US would probably stand with Taiwan if there is a bigger action. But what happens if the peripheral areas are attacked, like Kinmen Island, Matsui Island? These are indefensible areas. I still remember long back when Kennedy was contesting the presidential election, he had said that these cannot be defended. So I really don't know how US would react if China decides to just go a little further and not much. Then what will be the reaction?
So then Xi Jinping gets to say that, he pushed back and taught them a lesson. And does everyone go back to their lives? We'll have to see how this story plays out and hope better sense prevails on all ends. What Ukraine and Russia has demonstrated to us very clearly is that the world is too connected. No one is left unscathed by what happens in any part of the world. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the lead story this evening. Let me turn to the big national story of the day. The Congress will